In this video, we're going to take a look at DataFetch's new Webhooks feature. What this feature allows you to do is run a request using a webhook URL, which means you can run the request whenever a record changes, a form is submitted, or a record is created. To do this, you first need to set up the request as you normally would. So here I'm going to use the exchange rate application to do a currency conversion for the record here. So the from currency, I'm going to create a table reference to this currency field here. And the to currency, I'm going to use USD. And then I'm going to click Save and Run. And I'm going to filter all these fields. I'm going to keep the rate, which I'll map to my existing exchange rate field, and click Save and Run. So this is all pretty standard DataFetcher stuff. But the new feature that we've got is this webhook feature here. So what this allows us to do is get a URL here that we can copy and then call that in order to run the request. So if I delete this, I call that URL, you can see it's now been updated. And what we can do is combine that with a script and an automation and run that whenever a record is updated, created, or meets certain conditions. So if I go over to Webhook automations here, and I add a trigger that when a record matches conditions, so I'm going to say when the record in table 1 is not empty for currency and the amount is not empty, and I'm going to use that record there for the test record, and then for the action I'm going to say run a script. So we can go to the DataFetcher help docs and copy the script in here. And it's very simple, it's just going to call that URL. So I'm going to replace your webhook URL with our URL for this request. And then we need to add the input variable of the record ID from the first step. And we can test it. And it ran successfully. So let's turn it on and go back to the table. And now what we can do is create records, and they're going to run using DataFetcher webhooks, and we can see it's updated there. And if we go back to our DataFetcher app, we can just have a look in the run history and confirm that that's what's happening. So if we look in the run history, we can see we've got a manual run here and then all these webhook runs, and we can see the extra details of them there. So obviously there's a lot of different things you could build with this. You could run the request when a form is submitted, when a record is created, or for example when I change one of these, when the record is updated. Yeah, looking forward to seeing what people build with this, because it means rather than just manual runs and scheduled runs, you can also run stuff from a webhook. The next thing that's new in DataFetcher is accounts have now become workspaces. So this just mimics what they are in Airtable. So rather than these being called accounts here, it's now called a workspace. And accounts were kind of confusing for people because you didn't necessarily know the difference between like your personal account with your email and your account with your team members and stuff. So we've just had a little name change that makes them workspaces rather than accounts. So hopefully that's a bit clearer now.